All right, going over some estate information in general. Once again, just stuff to have downloaded in your mind as far as principles of law. In this case, a state, when one knows who thyself is in their national capacity. Things might pop up later in the game, and you never know what position you may be in where you want to activate the principles of law. This booklet will be put into the most colloquial way possible for easy comprehension. This booklet will be written etymologically sound to the best of my ability, and the words used will be true in their definitive definition. A, mortgage, as defined in Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, is merely a lien and does not create title to an estate. Easily put, if you get a mortgage, this does not mean you own the home. The same stands true to the deed of trust. This also does not mean you own the estate. The word deed simply means action, and a trust is an abstract noun, being an idea is placed on paper, as the mortgage and promissory note, which is to remain private, is supposed to be reflected in the deed of trust, quote unquote, to ensure private information is not revealed to the public. Of course, just because things should be a certain way doesn't mean people will do it in the correct way. These reign true in the fact that you and others have the right to contract. And the theme for the previous weeks is the co-contract situation, how it's in harmony with trust, how it's in harmony with Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, dealing with, obligations can be placed on contracts. So if you wish to do it incorrectly or pursuant to feudal law, you are well within your right, just as if you were contracting pursuant to common law or constitutional law, you would be well within your right, i.e., slavery is a choice, stated in the holy books, to you your way and to me mine, quote unquote. Christian Black Codes of 1724, Article 22 states, we declare that slaves have no right to any property or any kind of property, but that all that they acquire either by their own industry, or by the ability of others, or by any other means or title whatsoever, shall be full property of their masters. And the children of said slaves, their fathers, mothers, their kindred, or other relation, either free or slave, shall have no pretensions or claim thereto, either through testamentary nor positions or donations, or into vice versa, which dispositions and donations we declare null and void, and also whatever promise they may have entered into by persons incapable of disposing of anything and are participating to any contract. So that's highlighted for a couple reasons. Christian Black codes can't own property in that status. To the contract part is really what I'm emphasizing, because back to contract law, what makes a contract binding is certain rules of the game that have to be taking place. Once again, it can't be unilateral, which means if it's 5 people involved in the contract. It needs to be 5 ink signatures, not just one. And then another one, for example, would be a minor can't enter into an agreement, right? So you're saying you're black, you're saying that you're a minor. And if you're saying you're a minor, the contract is void. You can't contract. All right. So definition, mortgage. An estate created by a conveyance, absolute in its form, but intended to secure the performance of some act, such as the payment of money and the like, by the grantor or some other person, and to become void if the act is performed agreeably to the terms prescribed at the time of making such conveyance. We got some res judicata, Washby real property, conditional conveyance of land. We got Mitchell versus Berman. And then we have another court case quoting in their transcripts a transfer of property passing conditionally as security for debt, right? Potter versus Berman. A debt by specialty secured by a pledge of lands of which the legal ownership is vested in the creditor, but of which in equity, the debtor and those claiming under him remain the actual owners until debarred by judicial sentence or their own lashes. The foregoing definitions of mortgage or mortgage, M-O-T-G, the foregoing definitions are applicable to the common law conception of a mortgage, but in many states in modern times, it is regarded as a mere lien and not as creating a title or estate. And that was in the court case. It was decided that's the fact. And Ziegler versus Sawyer. It is a pledge or security of particular property for the payment of debt or the performance of some other obligation. Whatever form the transaction may take, but is not now regarded as a conveyance in effect, though it may be cast in the form of a conveyance. Muth versus Goner. And then we have chattel mortgage. That speaks for itself. Chattel mortgage, a mortgage of goods, chattel, or personal property. A promissory note is exactly what it sounds like. It is a promise written down, thus, in the form of a note, like when you pass notes in high school. This is where the four-corner rule comes into play, as opposed to filing a claim in court based on verbal promise, which, without video or audio evidence, would be difficult to prove. It becomes easier for everyone to just write things down. This written expression of thought is also where we get the phrase expressed trust, right? It's just that simple. We could just have honor and just say, this is what we're going to do, and do it. Express trust. It's expressed by the action, though. That's the key part. We say we're going to do something, then we need to do it, right? And then when that do it part is being done, that's the whole expressed. But it's not nothing literal. We just doing it. And in written form, it's also expressed as well, of course. All right. The four corner rule simply means any civil litigation based on contracts will not be based on what litigants say about the contract or agreement as far as terms and conditions, but solely and strictly based on written agreement, law of the contract itself, right? Expressed in the contract, in this case, expressed in the written document, which needs to reflect in the actions of the human beings that created the document. The human beings' actions make the document come to life. Four corner rule. No, I just read that. Of course, with other pre-imposed conditions such as full disclosure, honor, mental status, equal valuable exchange, and consent, and others. The word mortgage etymologically means dead pledge. The mortgage is merely a lien on the house, which the mortgage contract / promissory note states that if the amount allegedly loaned is not paid in full based on a default, then the house is taken as collateral. Thus, the home is the collateral interest in the mortgage contract. All mortgages are linear contracts. Linear. I think I just talked about that earlier. Like, it's only one signature, only one person taking the full blunt, the burden. If things default, only one person is liable, basically. The alleged loaning agency creditor never loaned you anything of actual value, which makes the entire deed or action void ab initio from the beginning or on its face. But since credit is an abstract noun, not physical, and you agreed that they are the creditor and not the lender, they contractually don't have to give you anything, since you do not challenge this via an adverse claim and agree via your ignorant, tacit compliance, acquiescence, and trust that these people are going to be honest with you simply because they have a suit and a smile on their face, right? The average banker look, the banker look. You become their chattel by consent, agreement, and your own ignorant free will. We have a definition of ignorant. Late 14th century, lacking wisdom or knowledge, unaware. From Old French, 14th century, ignorant. From Latin, ignorantum. Nominative, pertaining to ignorance, not knowing, not to know, to be unacquainted, mistake, understood, to take no notice of, pay no attention to, right? This is what ignorant is. Not knowing, lacking wisdom. Feudal law, feudal law. All modern day mortgages and deeds of trust as they relate to mortgages and other loans or promissory notes such as car loans, student loans, and the like are based on feudal law. Feudalism was a combination of legal, economic, military, cultural force that was established by the papacy and other Christian monarchs during the Crusades and Inquisition in medieval Europe between the 9th and 15th centuries against the Moors. This period is also known as the Reconquista, The Reconquista is a time period in history when Europeans began to reconquer lands and territories previously owned by the Moors. Broadly defined, it was a way of structuring society around relationships that were derived from the holding of land in exchange for service or slave labor or chattel slavery. The money secured via the feudal system was then used to fund their armies to continue their wars against the Moors. The statutes codes were enforced by military might, police power, and if simple rules were not followed, you would be thrown in prison. Feudal derived from the Frankish term feua, in which fehu means cattle, right? So essentially, cattle and ad mean goods or means good, cattle good, implying a movable object of value. Feudal. This meaning was then applied to people and land itself, in which land was used to pay for fealty, such as to a vassal or the person. Thus, the old word fios, meaning movable property, i.e., the person, changed little by little to fias, meaning the exact opposite, the person's land and property. In short, the monarchs in our case, the United States Corporation, will position themselves as your parent or parens pater, as it is known in law. So I would look up parens pater for anybody that's not familiar with that phrase to get the whole context of when somebody's trying to play the parent over lands. That's a law term. Parens patra or patre. All right. As it's known in law, allow you to live while claiming to protect you. And you would in turn pledge, as in mortgage or deed pledge, your life, livelihood, and lands to them. Before a lord could grant a fief to somebody or someone, he had to make that person a vassal property, or i.e., chattel slave for a chattel mortgage. So you see, the status has to be stripped to even um, do the mortgage, because the mortgage is really chattel mortgage. Really, mortgage is for short. Mortgage, just saying I got a mortgage, that's short. You really should be saying I got a chattel mortgage. That's proper, because that'll open the door to status, right? Because that's why that was the whole point of this history lesson, to show you how the feudal system even started, of denationalization of people to claim the land under the guise that you're being protected. This was done at a formal and symbolic ceremony called the condemnation ceremony. In modern times, it's your U.S. citizenship birth certificate. This ceremony, that's to say, this ceremony was composed of the two-part act of homage and oath of fealty. That makes me think about the Osman or the Ottoman Empire um, series, and Muhammad II allowed I think his name was called Dracula. Yeah, I said Draco or Dracula. Um, he was a vassal. He had a vassal government. So that Draco was like the head of that, but he was paying fealty or tribute to Muhammad II. So just to put that in context, and the whole reason Draco was he ended up having an uprising against Muhammad II because he thought he was second fiddle, which he was. I mean, I ain't gonna give too much away of whoever didn't see it, but he agreed to that, and
Peace,
his life
peace,
was spared. You know what I'm saying? So
peace, peace,
we need Islam, peace and love.
peace and love. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. We'll chop it up on the background, on the back end of the curriculum. But yeah, just take notes and we'll talk about it on the back and have a little miscellaneous convo. But Islam, happy holy day. Good to see you, man.
How you too?
Um, all right. So during homage, the Lord, master, creditor, and vassal slave debtor entered into a contract in which the vassal slave promised, right, promissory note, to fight for the Lord at his command or the draft. Willis, the Lord agreed to protect the vassal from external forces, right? Fear of terrorism promoted by the US, right? Fealty comes from the Latin fidelitas and denotes a fealty owned by a vassal to his feudal lord, right? That's why I gave the example of Draco with Muhammad II, because he was paying tribute to Muhammad II. And the name of his, he was in the middle of the kingdom of Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, which Muhammad II had the keys to. He was the head of. But in the middle, you had Draco or Dracula. That's where you get Dracula from. That character is really where how Dracula is talked about today is really from that character, which was like a fierce warrior competitor. And he rose up, he attempted to rise up against Muhammad II. But I'm bringing that up because that little baby piece of vassal that he had, that's what it was called, a vassal state. Um, and his only existence and only position of having that authority was to assist Muhammad II or whatever sultan that we had at that time and help us fight our enemies. And you just pay tribute, but you can have rulership, you can have dominions, you can have all that, right? All right. So fealty also refers to an oath, or more explicitly reinforces the commitments of the vassal made during homage, right? Homage, paying homage, tribute, right? Or simply put, the vassal or person or slave's willingness to do anything for the Lord. This translates to our willingness to do anything, right? To pay our bills. Now, fee simple or fee simple absolute is an estate in land, an apparent colored but not absolute form of free ownership. It is a way that real estate and land may be owned in feudal law, countries masquerading as common law, and is the highest possible ownership interest allowed to slaves that can be held in real property. The rights of the fee simple owner are limited by government powers of taxation, compulsory purchase, police power, and escheat, right? And it could also be limited further by certain encumbrances or taxes, right? Or conditions in the deed, such as, for example, a condition that required the land to be used as a public park with a reversion interest to the grantor if the condition fails. This also applies to homeowners, quote unquote, not being allowed to use their property to operate or run a business, inclusive of the forced occupation of your physical body to be in the property. The feudal law system, which fee simple is based in, first appeared in the Christian Black Codes of 1724, against the denationalized Moors. Sticking to the Reconquista laws, slave chattel property could not own property, and all that they acquired could never be theirs. And their slave master had the last say in any and all what they did. This is why when you have a mortgage, you can't sell the home without them being involved, nor can you transfer the estate to your children without their permission via probate or other third-party regulated systems by them, just as in the time of the Inquisition, right? The Spanish Inquisition. Look that up if you never heard of it. You see, it's the Pope sending orders, sending their generals to come and attempt to defeat our people west of Rome. And if they were successful, send 10% back.
I'm about to say that's crazy because that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at right now.
Where you
Rome, yeah, Rome.
You in Rome right now?
Yeah, like as we speak.
Okay. So in English law, the crown and radical title or the allodium of all land in England, meaning that it was the ultimate quote unquote owner of the land. Allodium. We look up allodio, right? Allodium is property held. In present time, it is the United States acting as the crown, with the individual states acting as lesser lords. However, the crown can grant ownership in an abstract entity called an estate in land, which is what is owned rather than the land it represents. This is where land grants and land patents from the US have its root. This is connected to the birth certificate, which is erroneously referred to as an estate. It can be abstractly expressed as the door to the property upon which they have the keys to access at will. With you being the doorman who thinks he or she is the owner because you stand at the door and open it. This modernly is represented as government land patents and mortgages, as if they have any lawful authority to issue them. It is merely their claim to power, and with no opposition, it stands in feudalism, dealing with war powers, right? The fee simple estate is also called estate in fee simple or fee simple title, sometimes simply freehold. All right. Escrow. The escrow account is simply an apparent but not actual uninterested third party who you give your monthly payment to. Then a cut or a tax is taken for the crown or U.S. oligarchy, and the rest goes to the alleged lender. This is all done in a feigned attempt to display equity and fairness. It is merely a way to keep account for their profit. In other words, it's them managing the fiefs to ensure that each vassal, right, or slave, mortgage holder, you, is paying their fealty or homage to the crown for allowing them to live and protect them, similar to cattle or cows. The cows pay their homage or fealty to the farmer or the crown in the form of milk for the farmer's protection against predators and allowing them to live. This is why it is called cattle mortgages or chattel mortgages. Remember, that's the full name. Chattel mortgages is not just mortgage. It's a chattel mortgage.
So let's say I have a question. So when they say that, or when they like when they use that word, are they stating like, oh well, these people that is supposed to own this land, are they looking at us like as of animals or something?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was on the same page.
Yep. Yep. Same page. Yep. All right. This is why it's called chattel mortgages. The house is the farm and you are the cow. Your energy in the form of paper money, FRN, Federal Reserve notes, is your homage or fealty to the federal US government to protect you via their police and their military. While in actuality, it's the Inquisition and they are domestic terrorists. So let's go into 18 USC, section 2331, the term domestic terrorism. The term domestic terrorism means activities that involves acts dangerous to human life and that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state, or appears to be intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population to influence the policy of government by intimidation or coercion, or to the effect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, and occur primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. So, who's a domestic terrorist based on the definition that we read? That would be a thought that you would want to ask yourself, right? The loan. The loan. This is where most of the confusion is derived, simply because there are assumptions made on our behalf. In their mind, it is assumed that we are the vassal owing allegiance to the crown. In our mind, it is assumed that the agent of the bank is an honest person interested in helping us become a first homeowner, or in other cases, multiple homeowner. It is also assumed that the word own means the acquisition of property in which you are vested with absolute ownership, power, and authority over the home. We compare it to when we purchase items from the store, such as a TV. We know once we have the receipt to the TV, we are the true owner, and no one can report it stolen or make a claim thereto because we have the receipt. We assume this applies to the mortgage and deed as well. It does not. What we don't see is that we are listed as a mortgager, quote unquote owner, and the bank or other agency is listed as the lender. But what did they lend you? What did they give you? When did they give it to you? Yeah, now knowing contract law, the principles, right? Unilateral. Can't just be one signature, right? It must be what they call consideration. Consideration in contract law means something of value. That's why the question is being phrased, what did they give you? Because it's not like they gave you 100,000 or 500,000 to get the home. It was just simply, oh, we're going to extend you this loan, but it wasn't like no cold cash or nothing. But you never seen that. It's simple swiping a keyboard, right? So that once again, what did they give you? We're talking about just strictly the bullet points of contract law. Where's the consideration? Was it any? If not, then it's not binding. So, right? Do you have proof of the transfer that they did in fact give you anything of value? Right? The consideration. Under what context or laws were the items or things of value given to you? We assume that just because we wrote a monetary value on a piece of paper and handed us keys that the monetary amount was given to us. It never was. Therefore, the bank or alleged owner still owes you and it is in default. They simply created credit on their books and transferred it to know, meaning they don't have money. They wrote a number on the paper and said they now had the amount and gave it to you. Then they had you sign it and agree to it as if they truly gave you money. And once again, back to contract law.
That's wow, that's crazy. That's a whole scam though. That's a whole scam right there. It had its finest.
Yeah. And it's back to the voluntary situation. People are voluntarily saying, okay, I'm with that. I'm gonna sign off on that. Now it's like, well, yeah, it's legal. It was illegal.
Wow, that's crazy.
All right. So it's a couple more sections in a little dialogue. It is also assumed that the bank owned the property and had the right to sell it to you. Yet they know you're the actual owner of the land. Hence, you're listed as a mortgager. The mortgager itself is to secure the payment of the loan, but what loan if they never handed you money? Additionally, why secure your house as collateral if they never loaned you anything? Which means you are not the debtor. The only solution is adverse possession via adverse claim, pursuant
Mm.
rights of indigenous people. And once again, this level of the game is when, we got a nice, I would say like 100 Moors in the area functioning together, giving it all they got, putting this number one, the best they can, um, and being competent on these facts of law. If everybody in their own individual capacity, in a collective capacity, are sharp in these matters of law, right? Here it is for you. Because back to the House resolutions that are in most city halls in North America, it's already hands down that we Aboriginal and Indigenous to the land. So to put adverse claims and possessions is back to organization, back to when you look up government, what does it say? Simply organization of people. If the people not on the same page, if the people get emotionally offended on stuff, and it makes them not want to go their own way, and they're not looking at it like it's a bigger picture, to stay down, stay solid. These type of things will never happen, right?
Mm.
We're gonna be sitting back talking about how we getting depressed, and you know what I'm saying? Because it's a very baby step way we can go about changing our world. You know what I mean? It don't take much. You know what I'm saying? It takes some people just to stay silent and stay down, stay consistent, and be on one mind, one body. You know what I mean? So that's that. The closure of a mortgage occurs the moment you sign the contract, meaning the negotiations are no longer open. They are closed or final. Therefore, there can be no foreclosure, right? Foreclosure. It's already closed, right? After the signing of an agreement. The for means before. Thus, you cannot do something before, right? Before it happened and after it happened. So is it closed? Oh, because if it's closed, how can you be foreclosed on later?
Mm. Yeah, that don't even make sense.
It was a closing. Really? So,
Yeah.
all right. Um, allodial title in the Constitution. Matter of fact, I'm gonna stop it actually right here. We'll pick up next time on Wednesday.
But I have a question though. If you don't mind.
The floor is open. The floor is open. Yeah, for everybody. Just answer,
Okay,
answer,
okay.
answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I wanted to know, like, okay, so that's the same thing with a social security card, right? Am I correct? It's the same thing like like the social security card, like when it comes to like the loan and et cetera, like does that go into the contact of that as well? Or like how that play a part? Like does it go in like hand in hand of them knowing like, like those things are your property? or like is it a whole different like a whole different aspect?
Um, Try to repackage it so I can kind of get it. So I can.
All right, so like so I was saying like you know like on the back of your social security card you got a either your birth certificate or your social security card. I was wondering, like, is that the same thing, like with the loans and the business? Like, does that have anything to do with that as well, or in the same content?
I mean, okay, if let's say the state or agency is gonna give you a loan, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna give it to the straw or the entity that's on the birth certificate. They're gonna give
Hmm.
that loan to that entity. And 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be a human being saying, "I'm the entity." And typically, when that's the case, a social will be given, instruments like that will be,
Mm,
people in that mind state will be like, "Yeah, okay, this is here. This is my social."
wow.
And then, now it's stipulations on the loan, right? It can be revoked at any time. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Mm.
Eminent domain, all type of things can take place. But yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did, you did, you did. What about so okay, another question. So like when they send like those things to your house or mortgage bills and et cetera like that, like do you have the right to like reject it, decline it because it's like, okay, I didn't agree to these terms, but it's like to them it's like, oh, if you don't sign this paper, then we can't help you, or if you don't sign this paper, then like we can't move forward with anything. How does that how do you get out of that?
Um, it's something called the what's that thing called? Basically, when you're dealing with securities, because a mortgage will be considered a security because people are investing in it, investing in the mortgage. For example, everybody can go and get what you call a mortgage. You can invest in mortgages basically, and it could be at like 6%, mean or 8%, meaning that after it matures, if you invested $100, you're gonna get your $100 back and plus 6% at the
Mm,
at the maturity date, right? On the flip side, is somebody actually paying a mortgage at 6% fixed or whatever percent fixed or adjustable, right?
hmm.
So that person paying the mortgage is in actuality paying the investors as well that are investing in the mortgage on the other side, right? So
Wow.
that's
Damn.
that's what makes a mortgage a security. That's what a security is. And when you go to any banking institution like Merrill Lynch, they're dealing with securities. That's the lingo they're using. It's things that are making money that can be passed on. So if me and you get into a contract and I'll be like, I'm the owner of a duplex or a triplex, all the people that's paying rent, they paying it to me because we got a contract. I sell my contract to you. So now you got the contract. They gonna be paying you rent now, right?
Mm,
So
hmm.
that contract is considered a security for that reason, right? So,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
now, so what I was getting at when you're dealing in securities, SEC, it's called the Security Exchange Commission. When you when you look in the laws of the Security Exchange Commission, you got to disclose to um, the people that think they own the house, this is what we're doing. This is a security. If they do not, they violate the rules of Security Exchange Commission, and they got police, or you can call it, I guess, HR, or no, call it what's it called? The internal police for every like the police arresting the police. What's some people called? Uh,
Is it enforcements or the sheriff? Like I'm
no.
confused.
It's like internal affairs. Basically, internal affairs for the Security Exchange. The police for the Security Exchange Commission. So
Okay.
whoever violates security rules, they'll come and pretty much arrest them, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's so you will go into the Security Exchange Commission and identify the laws that were broken, and then report them I can't think of the people name right now, but it's a certain when you look up sect, they'll tell you who that people is. Like if you have any issues, let Whoopty Whoop know. I can't think of it off top, but yeah. So
Okay,
that's
okay, okay.
that's one way to
Yeah,
go
you
about
answered my question.
it. Yeah, and that's just one. That's just one way. The other one, like I said before, is just knowing contract law. You know that nine times out of ten it's gonna be just your signature on these documents, on all the docs. It's just gonna be you. You the only one with liability. You the only one, and that's a violation of contract law as well.
Sheesh.
So there's multiple ways you can look at that. You know what I'm saying? Um, but all these things when you come back at them, it's called an adverse claim, right? In law, you saying I make an adverse claim based on law, right? And by the way, what's your name on Instagram? Look,
Taz. It's on Instagram is my real name is Taz. Well, Terry, but on Instagram it's I think it's Butterfly Effect. Yeah, Butterfly Effect.
okay,
Yeah.
where you at again? What state?
Right now I'm in Rome because I'm about to go see my wife in Bahrain.
No, no,
Um,
no. No, I'm talking about just on your regular.
oh, Virginia.
That's right. That's right. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Virginia. Yeah.
Islam. Islam. Glad you was finally able to tap in. Okay, so you got the book.
Yeah.
You got the more tactical.
Yeah, I got it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm still studying it by little. It's really deep, so certain words I gotta go to the fourth. I think it's like the fourth edition Law Black Dictionary. So I
Mhm.
gotta look into that and dig into certain words that I may not understand or overstand. So I mean, I'm still learning and everything. So I'm taking piece by piece, little by little, trying to build up my knowledge so I can teach when that time get you know when it's my time to do so. That's yeah. So I gotta keep studying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one day at a time, man. Just be sincere.
right, right.
It's just gonna come together, man. You know.
Yeah, but it is a lot of questions that I do want to ask because like just being in the area with those devils or those entities or whatever you want to call them. I could see like as I read the book how why it describes them, and why they're denying their race and like everything about them. They're denying every single thing and everything that we do. It's like they're trying to take it and claim our stuff as theirs. Like, it's like it's crazy. So as I dig in deep into it, and it really makes sense. It really makes sense. But my question I wanted to ask is like what for a beginner, as I do my research and stuff like that, like is it other books that you could reference me that I could dig in deep into more
In what area?
information?
What area?
Uh and just like talking about I think if I'm not I may not be saying the name properly, but excuse me if I'm not, or correct me if I'm wrong, but I think his name Drew Noble
Drew Ali.
Drew Ali. Yeah, yeah. I wanted some of more of his books so I could understand like like who he was, and like I could dig in deep into like more of his uh his teaching.
So you got. Have you been on RV Bay publications at all ever?
I skimmed through it, but I really didn't really like dig in deep into it because of a lot other stuff that I've been dealing with. So I did see like the ID and the notifications and all of that, but I didn't see like the books, like where I can get the books at. So I didn't dig too deep into it.
Okay, I'll try to navigate you through at a later date. Just try to show
Okay,
you a video or something. But essentially,
okay,
you got the oral statements from the prophet. Um, you can kind of get a sense of where his mind frame was at. Uh, I would get what's another book? Exhuming of a Nation. You go. into some cool info. I would go. There's a book called The Torch. Got some good.
Torch.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I've seen that before.
but yeah, it's no, it's not a lot of info. It's probably locked in the vaults in the FBI files. It's a lot more stuff that's not being put out there. Because that was a heavy dude, man. So
Yeah, I believe it. He definitely had some knowledge on him though, especially reading that book. You like, whoa,
yeah,
like you gotta. It's like a thing you just replay one time. You gotta rewind it back just to let me hear this again.
yeah.
So yeah, he was definitely hitting on a lot of strong points, and he was real strong, like very strong individual. So yeah.
But I would start with those three so you can get a sense of the direction or where the mind frame. You know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, yeah, that's all I had. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, for sure, man. I appreciate you asking the questions. Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay. Um. So yeah, Sunday we have a physical meeting on Sunday. I sent you all the bullet points too. Right, like the bullet for the society for the Terry.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah. Nah, it's just all love, man. All love. Now I was trying to type something, but nah. You go
I
ahead.
see the chat. I see the chat now. I didn't have it up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's live. But yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on the curriculum tonight, or just in general? All right. Well, I'll see some of you on Sunday. I'll see some of you next Wednesday. And everybody have a beautiful holy day. Hope everybody have a beautiful rest of their week and had a beautiful week thus far. And peace and love on this day of Venus.
Peace. Peace and love.
Peace and love, everybody.
Peace and love, everyone.